We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Martin Luther King breakfast that's coming up. And then at the very end, we're also going to switch languages. We're going to go into Spanish. And we're going to talk to our friends from la Cámara de Empresarios Latinos, which is a Spanish-speaking Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here in the Houston area. So let's get right into the show. Guys, what's been going on in the community?
Well, as you know, we had a Southwest Airline flight that was diverted. It went to a small town instead of its original destination. And the runway was so small because it's not made for 747 jets. And they had about 100 feet left of runway. So fortunately for Southwest Airlines, there was not a tragedy. Very easily could have been. But the pilots that were flying their airplane have been put on leave of absence until further investigation. Now, I don't know about you, but the way I look at it is, why would this airline even be flying to a small airport anyway?
Well, what are the details? Do we know why? I mean, this is the first I hear of it. So.
Yeah. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about it on the news. It's similar to another situation that took place where actually a cargo plane in Tennessee landed in the wrong airport. And they had all kind of aerospace engineers that had to come because it wasn't enough runway for that big airplane to take off. So they had to unload equipment, et cetera, and so forth. But yeah, these are things that we should be concerned about because whether it's our people, passengers, or equipment or things of that nature that are on these planes, we should be very, very much concerned what goes on in this regard.
There was over 100 plus passengers on the flight. They landed 7 miles away from their destination point. Okay, so the passengers were loaded onto a bus and they traveled on bus to the airport they were supposed to be at originally. So it wasn't that bad, but it could have been. Could have been very serious.
But let's go to a serious topic. If y'all heard, Seven Lakes High School here in Katy, Texas got evacuated for a bomb threat?
A zip gun was what was found. And do you guys know what a zip gun is?
No.
It's a homemade gun, if you will. So basically, that's what they found. That was the explosive device, and that's what caused the evacuation of the students and whatnot. They have a student in custody right now.
This goes back to all the other issues that are affecting some of the school districts as far as safety. You know better than I do that it costs way too much to have all these students go through metal detectors and have extra security. But what is the real solution for all these problems we're having at the school?
The nature of society has changed. We have what's called asymmetrical warfare, or terrorism as they would like to call it, meaning that people are not going to put a standing army against your standing army. They're going to pick, in some cases, military targets, but sometimes they're economic or they're soft targets, such as neighborhood schools, stadiums, and things of that nature. So everything has changed in that regard, just like it's changed in regards to natural disasters and catastrophes, how we have to build our communities to factor in those things such as security and such as natural disasters, along with the economic and the social dynamics of building a community. So these are things we have to look at. But one of the problems it comes down to is and eventually we'll get around to talking about it, is about family values. It's about the values that we understood that there was right and wrong. Whether you invited God in the school, and I'm not going to get in that argument. Though as a Muslim, I would say, yeah, well, God should be in school, or we should be able to go in a corner and say what we got to say after we take the pledge to the flag or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that we're living in a society where right and wrong has become so blurred. People, they can't distinguish between the right and wrong. If we want to be safe, then we've got to have some standards of what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And that really has to come from home, not in the school.
I just don't understand, because we're one of the only industrialized countries that has so much violence in terms of mass killings. You don't see this type of, situation happening in Europe or Canada. So I don't know if it's gun control issues. It just seems like anybody can get a gun. Bullets are cheap. And so I don't know exactly what the root of it is, but we have a problem. And I know that this one is a homemade one, but it just seems like a lot of the kids that are involved in this activity have mental health issues. So I don't know how we identify them so that things like this can be prevented in the future.
Well, plus the information age. I mean, right now I just did a quick search because I'd never heard of a zip gun. It's right there on Wikipedia. It's as easy as taking the light bulb off of a flashlight and that's the barrel of your gun. And you improvise those homemade or home materials you have at home into some kind of a weapon that you can fire.
Yeah, used to be what we did was, I'm giving away my age. Growing up in New York, we would take your antenna off your car, break the antenna off your car, and take the antenna and basically cut it down to about this size and put it on a wooden handle, something like that, and you could fit a .22 shell in that. And then all you needed to do was be able to strike that mechanism, and that would provide a zip gun. So you're right, it's easily made, and as you said, in the information age, people who may have mental issues, as she has said, may go on there and take out any grievance they may have. And then we've got this proliferation of discussion of bullying. I mean, I don't know, man. I always knew bullies at school. I mean, it's not been like it is now. But now people would absolutely get back at bullies by killing up the whole class. That we've really gone over the edge. There's some things we need to pull back from. I feel like we're on the edge of the abyss, and this is why this dialogue and discussion is very important, particularly between our communities, but among all the communities of Houston.
So we got another topic that's in the news. Dave Wilson, who actually won an election, become a trustee at Houston Community College. He won against the 20-plus year veteran on the table, the round table, if you will. And unfortunately, he cannot take his seat because they have filed a lawsuit against him for his residency.
Right.
So the state court is looking at whether he actually does live in the district that he wants to represent. Now, Dave Wilson, in case you're not familiar with him, he's an Anglo and he's Republican, and he won in an African-American district. Now, the reason why he won, well, there's some people that say that he told some untruths, basically, in his literature. He made it seem like he was an African-American, even though he wasn't. But regardless,
You're being so politically correct. Just say what it is. I mean, you're saying that he lied. I mean, did he lie?
I would say that he told the voters something that he wasn't. In other words, he pretended to be an African-American when he wasn't.
He had great marketing.
Well, you can call it what it
I
is.
think is
He
lying.
never said I'm black. He never said I'm white.
Yeah, but he made you assume. Okay?
You know what assume
made you
does when you
assume.
put. You know what happens with you and me. I mean,
So I'd be curious to see what you thought about that.
Well, there's two ways of looking at that, since we don't want to be necessarily politically correct. Yes, he purposely did what he did. He's a known commodity for those who are politically sagacious or knowledgeable. But in truth, you know, here's an incumbent that's been there for 20 plus years, as you've said. And here you just put, this could be a straw man. He could have been anybody. And yet he won. Whether he presented himself as someone else or not, the question is, the bottom line is this, is that, say he won fair and square. Okay, let's take that off the table. Say he won fair and square. The question has to be, will he represent the best interests of that district, or will he be ideological in the way that he has been? He's been anti-everything, affirmative action, you name it.
Anti-gay.
Anything that's progressive, he's been anti. So the question has to be, when you're dealing with public education, people who have that ideological slant don't see any value in public education. They're against public education. Will he be a steward of the resources of the community, and will he represent the people? See, we live in a democratic republic. This is not a democracy. It's a democratic republic. The people vote you in, and you're to represent them. Will he represent the constituents, albeit black, albeit mostly Democrat, by hook or by crook that he got in? Will he represent them? That is the question for me. But I don't like
I
what
think it's
he
just
did.
interesting that you point out that you have an elected official that had been there for 20 years, but yet this new person or unknown was able to beat him. And so I just wonder if that person had been engaged in the community. Have they been going out to civic club meetings? I know that HCC is not one of the prominent seats, so they're probably not getting a lot of media coverage, but still, are you out there as much as you were during an election year so that people know who you are?
That's the thing. He never went out into the public. He
You see,
sent
but
out
you-
literature.
But you're putting all the weight on Dave Wilson.
I'm talking about
you
the
gotta talk
elected
about the
official.
incumbent. He didn't
That's
do
what
his
I'm
job to
talking
get
about.
reelected.
Yeah, well,
He took it for granted. He thought, hey, I've been here forever. I can sit back and just win again. He's
Yeah.
taking the voters
No,
for
no, I
granted.
agree with that. But the issue is whether he's a resident or not.
Well,
Plain and simple.
that's a different story because
So-
he got a red tag on his
Something
apartment.
about that his kids, he used the same address too, so that his kids could
And
vote for him.
That's called
as
voter
well.
fraud. If that's
Like
if that
on
doesn't
top of
exist,
the-
I mean that's fraud.
On top of a building of his.
You know,
Sounds
no,
like
no
another
kitchen, no
candidate.
bathroom. Who else?
Sounds like another candidate.
Which one?
We won't go into that. That's a good place.
Oh man, let's bring it up again. Woo.
Let's go on to another topic. Now, you know that we had in Colorado approval for what I would call the use of marijuana for whatever you wanted.
Recreational.
You brought it up again.
Again, did we
2
talk
weeks
about
in a
this
row, he
last
brings it
week?
up. He likes talking about this.
So I wanted your opinion. Do you think it's right or wrong?
I'm not a advocate of using marijuana recreationally or whatever. Now, trust me, I'm not one of these clergymen that floated down out of heaven. I came up out of hell with the rest of us, so I do understand that. But I'm not for that. I think that we need to be clean and we need to be sober going forward. So I'm not for recreational use. If there is any medical use for it, let that be done by science and determine that. But as far as recreational use, I'm not for it. I don't think it's good. Just like I'm a person who fights against alcoholism, which is legal, you know. So I fight against those things. And some of the biggest drugs that are abused are prescription drugs.
Mm-hmm.
They're already legal. So I'm not for those kind of things. I'm for natural, holistic means of healing ourselves, diet, exercise, other things. And then if cutting and medicine is necessary, then we'll go forward with that. It's like the former head of the Houston Medical Center told me, he said, we don't have a wellness system, we have a sickness system. This is what he told me. And just as frank and matter of fact as anything, my mouth dropped open. You could have drove a tractor trailer in my mouth because that's exactly what we have: cut, medicate, and hospitalize instead of preventive medicine, holistic medicine. What can you do? We could reduce medical. We don't need quote unquote Obamacare if we would get down to the things that we need to make our food our medicine and our medicine our food.
Which lead us to the next topic. A-Rod. Just recently was in the news, national news. He was given a 1-year suspension because he's been using drugs to enhance his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know better than I do, there's a lot of folks in the league that use drugs. They wanted to make an example out of A-Rod, and I think rightly so. I think it's important that we try to weed out those that are taking these drugs by having these drug screenings on a regular basis. What are your thoughts on the A-Rod issue?
I personally think that it's just another thing to talk about. I mean, everybody was turning a blind eye a few years ago when it was the top news out there and everybody was packing the stadiums. Now all of a sudden the stadiums are empty and people go to the stadiums to see the controversial player that everybody's talking about. You know, the last time the Yankees were here, everybody was there to see the players that are making the news. So all we're doing is, you know, adding on to the attention these players are not getting for their actual performance on the field, which is playing baseball. Nowadays, people don't watch baseball. They watch MMA. They watch everything else but baseball.
He should be suspended for his performance, period.
Yeah, he's getting paid to do nothing.
I mean, you know.
I mean, I think it's important, but I mean, of all the things that we have to cover, I didn't understand why they needed to have Senate and congressional hearings on the use of, you know, drugs and in baseball. So I don't know.
I think it's a waste of time.
They're a victim of their own success. You think about it. Think about the time with dominant pitching. Was it when you had Koufax and Drysdale, maybe it's a little bit, Juan Marichal and others, when the mound was so high. And these guys would come over to hit you with brushback pitches. That was Bob Gibson. And they wanted a game that wasn't slow. They wanted a game that had high scoring in terms of runs. Sure. And they turned a blind eye and a deaf ear. Mm-hmm. So, and then all of a sudden people became the Incredible Hulk. They're hitting home runs. We're having high scores when a 1-0 game was something that a pure baseball aficionado loved. Mm-hmm. You would love to see that kind of duel, a Tom Seaver kind of duel against Glavine. You would love that. But nowadays, you know, it's like, so now they're victims of their own success. And now we do want to make an example of A-Rod, but that era was the era in which many, many people were doing that. And so this shouldn't be asterisk next to people's name. It's just that's the era that it was. Just like during Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth didn't play against the best in his league. There was segregation. He didn't play against the best Latino and black players. Come on. So he was knocking the ball out the park, but who was pitching? I mean, You know, where were the
wasn't
best
the best?
players? I mean, you go to Cuba, you go to Puerto Rico, you go to Mexico, where we were playing, and on the chitlin circuit, on the Negro leagues. Man, we would have killed. He'd have been a 150 average hitter. He might have had about 300 home runs. But
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is, so we don't put an asterisk next to Babe Ruth's name. So these things, we got to look at it in the context in which it is, and move on. If we want the people to be clean, then let's accept the game as it is, make the rules as it should be, and then stop subsidizing these stadiums. If we're not going to get the kind of product that we need to draw the people and the economic fallout that we were promised when we helped build these stadiums and finance them with taxpayer money.
Let's say that again.
That's a whole other.
I think that's a great lead in to why we are actually here. The topic for today, or unless we have some other topic.
We have one more.
Okay.
La Villa, Texas. There's a fight between the school district and the city officials. The city officials have raised the fees for water, and rightly so. And the school district refuses to pay that increase. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, because the school district actually shut down. The school is no longer open until they resolve the issue. So the students are having to stay at home.
Wow, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, if you don't have like the amount of leeway in your budget to pay for water, and you shut down the schools, I mean, where's the priority? I mean, the kids' education is at stake here.
Didn't we have some type of exemption here in Houston when the drainage fee went in? Did they do something for churches and school districts so that, because I think that our school district was not happy with the increase in the drainage fee.
Squeak a wheel gets the grease.
I've weighed in on everything else. I'm trying to restrain myself, from this. But what is, as brother said, what is our priority?
Mm-hmm.
What is our priority? What is going on between these entities and these various jurisdictions? Why are we working towards the whole? Why is this part greater than this part instead of the parts coming together to make up a whole, which is to produce a new generation of leaders that will then support us in our older age? We don't see about the investment. We're about now and what I can get now. And it's not about us, our, and the we. It's about I, mine, and me. And this is going to be our downfall as a nation, as a country, as a city, as communities, if we don't begin to change our language from I, me, and mine to us, our, and we.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this boat together.
If you look at the actual base of both organizations, the city represents the property owners and all the residents of that town. The school district is funded by the same property owners that's in the city. So
It's all about community
we're fighting
engagement,
ourselves. Is that what it is? That's ridiculous.
A lack of community engagement is what I think.
But sometimes
that all
people
these
treat
things happen.
renters, Jose, some people treat renters as if they're not paying property taxes.
Oh, they are.
But any landlord that got any sense is going to make sure that he rolls in, or he or she folds in the insurance and the taxes into your rent. Mm-hmm. So you are actually paying it, though indirectly. The same thing. And unfortunately, sometimes property owners may not see the benefit of educating, quote unquote, other folks' children, other people's children, and that is a deadly mistake. And that is something that we're going to really have to shake the trees about if we're going to go forward and be successful in the 21st century.
That's it.
Is anybody else? No. Man. Okay. Well, let's get right into. No, we're not going to take a break. We're going to go right into this. I think we're right on the verge of it. Okay, guys. We talk about the Black-Brown Coalition. We talk about Kumbaya. Let's just be honest here. We see all these great coalitions. We see all these great press conferences. We see all these beautiful events where people of color get together and talk. But at the end of the day, the taxpayers and the actual voters are not the ones running the community. If you look at the city of Houston right now, we have 14 different elected officials at the city council level.
17.
17, excuse me. There's 9 Anglo. There's 4 African American, there's 2 Hispanics, and only 2 women. Think about it. Is that all we really can? That's all the leadership the city can produce? And then going back down to affirmative action and small business, I'm very passionate about that, as we all are here. But at the end of the day, people say, "Oh, this is wonderful. We have 35% of the small business contract to be given to the small businesses." But really, what happened to the 65% and the rest of the contract? Why is that off the table? Why can't people get together and work together to create a partnership or a coalition to really represent all the community, rather than having the African Americans and the Hispanics or the other groups that are out there fighting over 35%?
Or sometimes even less.
Or even
25%.
less. So why does that happen? And I'll turn the table over to you to get some opinions, and let's go right into it.
That's a big subject, and we don't have all the time.
That's deep.
But it is. But it boils down to as we begin to have this conversation about, let's get rid of political correctness and let's have some honest dialogue. About mutual. We cannot be groups of people who get together like a grievance committee. What we're against. The question has to be put on the table. What are we for? And if what the Latino community is for and what I'm for, if there's 10 things that we list on a piece of paper, but 2 of those we just were not going to agree on, why should we fall out forever about those 2 things when there's 8 things that we agree upon? And if without giving a history lesson, if we really understood, when you talk about Latino culture, you talk about Spanish and Portuguese influence in this hemisphere, and the indigenous people. When we really talk about that, and then you look at the influence that Africans, Arabs, Muslims had on Spain and Portugal for 700 years, and how part of the Spanish language, in fact, is Arabic. And there are many contributions that have been made, Africa, Arabs, Muslims, to Spanish culture. And when you think about the Dark Ages of Europe, and you realize that there never was a Dark Ages in Spain and Portugal before the Renaissance, because that was the center of civilization in Europe. And so when you look at how Christian, Muslim, and Jew got along, even though they were under quote-unquote Muslim dominance, and nobody wants to be under the dominance of anybody else, yet they still were the center of medicine, science, and the influence of that civilization that we all experienced together is what fueled the Renaissance and took Europe to where it is. Now, fast forward to here and now. We all suffer from a similar sickness, and that is the bite of white supremacy. When you look at, I made a mistake once, just honestly, I made a mistake once of calling a Spaniard, a Mexican. He got so mad at me. I didn't understand, and I understand now, because they don't see you as one of them, and just because I'm speaking English, the Englishman doesn't see me like that. So in my community, people who are lighter skinned suffer from that same bite where they think they're better than me because I'm darker skinned. And even as dark as I am, some of people as dark as I am are so sick, I feel I'm better than somebody who's darker than me. So you have to balance both. I have to balance on my matriarchal side when I did my DNA test that my mother's side of the family is a lot of them came from Europe. I found that out. But on my father's side, my people came from Angola. So now I have to reconcile those two. Just like you have to reconcile the indigenous part of your culture, and at the same time, the part that does come from Spain. So how do we blend those together? Now that being mutually said, going forward, projecting into the future, the demographers in Texas A&M say in Texas, the Texas Challenge, I don't know which one, yeah, okay. The Texas Challenge here, right here, okay. Camera, okay. The Texas Challenge, the demographers say that the Hispanic, Latino community, Black, Asian, and Black community are going to be the majority. And the Texas Challenge, according to these demographers, is what do we do to make sure that we have proper health care, education, jobs, and whatnot in order to project this state forward. In this book, The Next 100 Years, America in 2050 by Joel Kotkin, he's simply saying that, that this is going to be a brown country. This is going to be a country of color. So the question has to be, how do we all work together to make America what they say it is, this great melting pot? It's more like gumbo or something else. I don't know, or queso or something like what it is, right?
Menudo.
And then in this book by Jorgen Randers, it says a global forecast for the next 40 years, 2052. He's not too optimistic. Now, the reason why he's not too optimistic, just to give you just a thumbnail of this book, is because the first world, which is the Northern Hemisphere and the developed nations, who have feasted off of the colonization and the being third world nations, our resources, our labor, they've gotten all that cheap. They go there on vacation, they do all of that. Now that the people, the darker people of the world and in the southern hemisphere are waking up and saying, hey, we want the same kind of lifestyle you got, we got a problem. Because there isn't but so many resources. We're having a population boom, and they want the same lifestyle we have. So what are we going to do environmentally, economically, socially, politically, in order to balance this thing so that they can have that similar lifestyle while we try to maintain the one that we have here? And this is the sensibility. So my mind isn't so much about us, because we have a great personal friendships, we do. Just like Judge Armando Rodriguez and then Judge Al Green had in that Black-Brown coalition. You know, the Benny Reyes days and the Mickey Leland days. There was a genuine working together, and we worked together as our generation. But I'm looking for our children going forward. What do we do to project them into the future and make that a world that can work together, respecting our differences, but at the same time building on our similarities? So that's my pitch, and we can go.
I really want to
there.
know more about that. And I mean, I don't know if we could have him on here one day, but just to kind of understand the history of the dynamics here in Houston. Like, I have no idea of what happened when Ben Reyes was around with Mickey Leland. What initiatives did they work on together? Like, nobody talks about it. We don't know about it. And so that would interest me, because now I don't see that same leadership in our elected officials to really come together on issues and collaborate. And then I don't think either side really is willing to give in and say, okay, well, we're going to support this African-American candidate, not because, you know, this is the best person, let's support them. I've seen plenty of Latinos and Latinas say, no, we can't support them because they're African-American and they don't support our candidate on other things. And so, and that's not me. I think that the new generation is more than willing to support a candidate regardless of their skin color, but you still have some of the old school folks that are heavily involved in politics that aren't willing to extend that olive branch.
I will tell you that in the small circle that I hang out with, there's been a lot of chatter, if you will, about the city council at large positions. A long time ago, a deal was cut where one would be African American for sure, and one would be Latino. Well, that didn't happen. We have an African American at large, but the Latino was never, it didn't come into fruition the way it was planned. As you can see, we don't have any at-large council members that are Latino. So I would really like to see that happen, where the Black-Brown Coalition will make that a priority and say Latinos need a at-large council member because there's Latinos all over the city that need to be represented. The other thing that I found very interesting is that you have a lot of the African-American leadership supporting one facet of the Hispanic community. The Hispanic community is so diverse that it's split up into different facets. At one time you had the Mario Gallegos clan, which we called many different names, but that included Kerr Alvarado, James Rodriguez, a couple others. And then you had another clan, if you will, the Ben Reyes clan. And then another clan, I would call it the Sylvie Garcia clan, Adrian Garcia clan. So there's different political frameworks, if you will. Now, if we can all somehow get together and agree, that would be amazing. Okay. Right now, it just doesn't happen. Okay. But I would really like to see the African American community together with the Hispanic community on initiatives that really mean something for the community, and make it known that this is what's going to happen, and our communities, both communities, are going to support this initiative.
Well, fundamentally, what it boils down, Minister Farrakhan says to me, it says to us, that politics without economics is symbol without substance. Mm-hmm. We can put people in office, but the truth of the matter is that there has to be some quiet conversations that we have that goes about to creating some Black-Brown millionaires, or together they become millionaires, so that we are able to influence the political process. This is what everybody else does. This is how they do it. And we really have to say to ourselves, okay, there has to be some kingmakers. In other words, they're called tree shakers. In my community, I don't want to call them clans. I got different names.
Different term, right?
Different term for them. But what I like to do is break them down into two areas. They're called tree shakers and jelly makers. There are people out there to shake the trees so the apples fall off, and then there's the jelly makers that pick up the apple, make the jelly. Now, heretofore, here's the problem. is that we shake the trees, the activists shake the trees, the apples fall down, the jelly makers make the jelly, but they never give a spoonful to the activists anymore and feed them and grow them up into leadership until those activists literally lose their jobs, their families, their lives, and we pass around the hat to bury them or to buy programs for their funeral. And so what happens is that then the majority community, who is now a majority community, or the money power say, okay, them little crumbs we gave you in the small business, guess what? You've been feasting for about 15, 20 years. We're going to take back that. And all of a sudden they'll come to me and they say, Muhammad, we got to do something. What do you mean we got to do something? I shook those trees 15 years ago. I've been at this thing for 27 years, as you all know. So I shook those trees 15 years ago for you, and you never came back and took some young people up and grew them up into leadership. And understand that. Now, my children are different than I am. I came up with a black-white dynamic. There was no gray in between. It was a black-white dynamic. But we can't operate from that paradigm anymore because my children understand multiculturalism. They're even more tolerant of gay and lesbian lifestyle. Not that they accept it, but they're tolerant of it. So there's a whole different language in which they operate in terms of their deal. So we have to do our part, but our focus always has to be on them. What are we going to leave them behind? You know, as we're becoming gray, our hair's getting a little thin, Benny, you know, what do we leave our children? And now that I'm a grandfather, I have a whole another aspect. So I think that this conversation this is our public conversation, but there has to be a private conversation that begins to take place, that fundamentally we get down to the facts of where will we be 40 years from now, and what foundation can we lay now for our children and grandchildren going forward. And yes, we have to bring that history up to date. People have to know that. Perhaps we can get Congressman Green and Judge Rodriguez to come and sit down and talk about those things. And there are those who do remember the Mickey Leland, Benny Reyes, when the people in the state legislature. See, again, we go back again. What were we against? Meaning that people were discriminating against us. They wouldn't give us access to this, that. So it was easy to come together against what we were against. But once we knocked down those doors and got into the House, what are we for? And when we set that agenda out, we have to set that agenda out for, then we're clear. And that which we disagree upon without becoming enemies. I was taught in this regard, and I'll kind of stop at this point. Unless you want me to keep on going. This is the point.
We'll wrap it up because we do have the next section.
Okay, so. This is the final point. Never fight a battle as if it's the last one, because you may need the people you're fighting against in the next battle.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
Whenever they draw a circle to keep us out, let's get together and draw a bigger circle to keep them in.
Just curious, what's your PhD in? I know you're studying for your PhD. What's it going to be in?
Urban planning and environmental policy.
Okay. Thus the books.
Let's build a world.
Absolutely. Okay. And on that note, thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Muhammad. I think this is just really the first piece of the conversation that needs to continue, that we really want you guys to get involved in. Because the reality is that our community, the more and more that we watch traditional news and we watch and we read the traditional newspapers and magazines, the more we become more separated rather than more united. We have to come down to how our children play. At the end of the day, my kids, they don't care about race, they don't care about color. You know, a lot of times they don't even care about language. It's about being together and having fun and growing together. I think our community has lost that quite a bit. And then we need to go back to the basics and unite, not just black and brown, but it needs to be black, brown, white, Asian. Race should not matter. It should be one group for the betterment of the entire community. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with a Martin Luther King breakfast. And welcome back. You're still watching Latino Talk TV. Now we have our special guest, Mr. Donnell Cooper with New Frontiers, and he's here to talk about the Martin Luther King breakfast that's coming up. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you again. Just want to thank you again for being your honored guest today. I am the new incoming president for the North Houston Frontiers, and I want to come out and talk today about our historical memorial breakfast, our Martin Luther King breakfast, which is going to be held on January the 20th, which will be next Monday at the downtown Hilton Americas. This is the largest production of a Dr. Martin Luther King celebration here in the local city, Houston area. And typically we start that breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, and typically from that point people leave out and go downtown to the actual parade area. This will be our 26th annual year of the breakfast, and our platform for the North Houston Frontiers is education and scholarships. So all of our dollars go back to scholarships, and we've given over $1 million over the last 20 years in regards to our scholarships to local Houston recipients.
Awesome.
How much is it for the breakfast?
The breakfast is $50 per ticket. However, we do have large corporate sponsor opportunities as well, and we also have a table sponsorship as well.
So tell us a little bit about the history. When did it start and who started it?
Well, the North Houston Frontier is a national organization. So on a national platform, we call it the International Frontiers Organization, and we have roughly about 37 chapters throughout the country. And however, the Houston chapter is the largest chapter throughout the country. And again, we're all volunteers. No one is paid. However, we do have an organizational platform with the president and the vice president, and we meet once a month here in the local area, just like a normally service organization. And so we're known to be the largest service organization throughout the country. And so we've been around for years promoting education, giving our inner city, our local Houstonians an opportunity to afford school. Prime example, we had a young lady last year, 2013, a scholarship recipient, got accepted to a 4-year college. However, when she got to the institution, she couldn't afford it. And she was very honest enough to be able to turn around and call us to say, hey, I need to return the refund check because I didn't get accepted. And so we felt so honored by her taking the opportunity to give that and to give us that notion of respect to call back. And we said, well, where are you attending on? I'm planning on attending. And she said, well, I'm going to attend Blinn College, come back home and go to Blinn. And so we surprised her and called Blinn and still honored her with that scholarship. And so that was a wake-up call to let us know that we were not reaching the masses, because our platform has always been that you had to go to a 4-year college. And so this year will be our first year that we've changed our platform, now giving those who select to go to a junior college an opportunity to also be a part of this opportunity as well.
I think that's excellent, because I think that a lot of times we push for those 4-year degrees, and when some of the more technical jobs are those 2-year degrees that are associate's degrees that is available also, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And so we started off at a $500 as well as a $1,000 level of a scholarship opportunity. And we most so important, like to educate students throughout the city, how many dollars are being returned back to companies because students are not being educated on the opportunities that are out there. And so our applications actually just went live on January 1, and we'll run those through March 31st. And we'll have our selection process around September, and as those students are selected, we normally have anywhere between 75 to 80 applicants that actually qualify for the interview sector, and then we narrow that down to those who actually qualify for the scholarship.
Is there a website if someone's interested in learning more about your organization or the scholarship?
Definitely. The website is www.nhfrontiers.com. So that's NHFORONTIERS.com.
What are some of those qualifications that you guys are looking for in students?
We look for a basic 2.5 GPA. Again, we offer that opportunity to give us an acceptance letter for the particular college that they're going to. And so again, very, very basic. We're not looking for the A student. We're not looking for the C student. But we look for those individuals who are taking the step forward, who are currently doing service right now in their community. So part of the application process, they have to show us some service projects that they're currently done. There's a detailed paper that they have to write as well. And so we're just not looking for the generic one who wants to go out and apply for the scholarship. We're looking for those who are taking the extra initiative as well.
So you're looking for the dedicated student.
The dedicated student.
I like
So
where
you're
going.
excluded.
I am.
See, he was on the 10-year plan at University.
No. Don't add an extra year. I was on the 9-year plan.
Now you're playing, huh?
And I'm proud of the 9-year plan.
But
I had to walk my path.
I tell you what, I'm very impressed. You look very sharp. I
Thank
don't
you.
know who dressed you this morning, but they did a great job.
My wife.
There you go.
They did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Jose and I went to University of Houston together.
Okay.
You know, and I'm a former teacher, by the way. I taught at HISD, and I saw many students have many hardships going to 4-year colleges. And so I'm glad to hear that you're doing this for the 2-year colleges.
Correct.
The students, that is. And so more power to you.
Absolutely. And I commend the effort of the organization for continuing the tradition for so many years, because I think that, you know, there's a lot of, just what we were talking about, people get more separated as time passes rather than get more united.
Okay.
And I'm proud of the fact that this organization continues to do the same thing every year, regardless of the situation. It's about the students, it's about the next generation, and providing for them. So thank you,
Correct.
the organization, for doing what y'all do.
Definitely. You know, and I kind of chime in on when Robert Muhammad was saying about passing the torch. You know, and when you look at a lot of the local service organizations here in the city, you're talking about people who have been committed for 15, 20 years. And so this organization has shared with me last year that we want you to be the president of the organization. We need a different face. And so I applaud the organization for believing in me to carry the torch. And so my goal, of course, is to go out to the community, but to unite the community. You know, and that's something that we've been talking about for this MLK celebration. Is to bring those organizations together. And so when you listen to the advertisements now on the local radio on Channel 11, they're advertising everything as one. And so we, as a collective group who sponsor the various celebrations throughout the city, we're wanting to step out this year as a united front to say, it's not just not the Northeastern Frontier, it's not Sylvester Turner doing this, I'm doing that. We're doing this to celebrate Dr. King, who had a dream about us being united. Instead of us all celebrating individually, we can celebrate together. And so that's a major platform for my presidency going into this organization. And I'm looking forward not only to embrace those individuals who want to apply for the scholarship, but also looking for our younger constituents to get active with the organization as well. We only can grow by getting active bodies and volunteers to spread the word of what we're doing.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
And we're actually going to move on to the next segment of the show, and we're actually going to change languages now. So we're going to go into Spanish. You're watching Latino Talk TV. We'll be right back. Bienvenidos, están viendo Latino Talk TV aquí en Houston, Texas. Vamos hoy a platicar un poquito en español. Dios quiera que no nos oigan los todos pochos, ¿verdad? Porque tenemos unos aquí medios bilingües, ¿verdad? Pero vamos a platicar con nuestra amiga Claudia Rodríguez, que viene representando a la Cámara de Empresarios Latinos de Houston, aquí en Houston, Texas. Si nunca han escuchado de esta organización, los invito que lo busquen por el internet, por Google, para que aprendan. Si son dueños de negocios, los invitamos a que se hagan miembros. Pero vamos a empezar con Claudia. Vamos a platicar sobre la organización y qué está haciendo la organización. Bienvenida, Claudia. ¿Cómo estás?
Gracias, José Luis. Estamos aquí en la organización, en la Cámara de Empresarios Latinos de Houston, invitando a todos los empresarios para que se reúnan con nosotros y puedan crecer más en su área de hispanos con sus negocios.
¿Qué tipo de negocio tienes tú? ¿Cómo empezaste en la organización?
Yo tengo 6 años en la Cámara de Empresarios que me hice miembro. Tengo un negocio para enseñar inglés. se llama, no puedo decir cómo se llama,
Sí.
Individual English. La verdad es que me ha ayudado mucho, he crecido mucho desde que estoy en la Cámara de Empresarios, me han ayudado mucho y lo recomiendo. Ahorita estoy en la mesa directiva y apoyando a todo el hispano.
¿Nos puedes platicar de la Cámara de Empresarios? ¿Qué hacen ustedes y qué tipo de eventos tienen?
Bueno, tenemos networking, en donde nos juntamos todos los miembros de la Cámara, todos los empresarios.
Pero no tienen que ser miembros, pueden ir los que no son miembros.
No, pueden ir los que no son miembros, están invitados todos los empresarios latinos. Hacemos networking donde nos conocemos tu negocio, conoces mi negocio, compartimos tarjetas y vemos en qué nos podemos ayudar unos a los otros.
Yo como dueño de mi propio negocio, aparte de networking, ¿qué otros beneficios puedo tener cualquier persona que tenga un negocio pequeño en asistir o ser miembro de la Cámara?
Bueno, tenemos ayuda desde abogados. Si necesitas algún abogado, nosotros tenemos en nuestra organización abogados. Tenemos contadores, tenemos restaurantes. Entonces, no sé qué es tu negocio, depende de lo que tú tengas. Si tú necesitas alguna ayuda, la Cámara de Empresarios, con su lista de socios que son empresarios, nosotros buscamos la ayuda de cómo te podemos ayudar. Si tú necesitas un evento, también te ayudamos a cómo crecer más tu negocio.
Okay.
¿Qué les puedes decir a las personas que están empezando a pensar que quieren empezar su propio negocio, pero quizás no saben bien averiguar qué servicios son los que van a hacer mejor o cómo empezar?
¿Qué papeles?
¿Qué documentos, permisos, oportunidades que tal vez existen con el gobierno?
Sí, yo les recomiendo que se acerquen con nosotros, con la Cámara de Empresarios. Nosotros les vamos a tratar de orientar lo más que podamos. Desde luego, lo más indispensable para iniciar un negocio es que tengas las ganas de superarte en este país. Es lo más importante. Desde que tú tienes esa iniciativa de que estás en este país para crecer, porque estamos en el país de las oportunidades, lo demás se te facilita. Lo importante es que tengas las ganas de iniciar tu negocio, tener las ganas de estar en este país y ser un latino más exitoso. Ya nosotros en la Cámara de Empresarios buscamos cuál es tu necesidad, qué es lo que te da miedo, en qué es lo que te hace falta, qué asesoría te hace falta y nosotros buscamos la manera. Si la tenemos, con mucho gusto lo vamos a ayudar.
Y a ver, como latina, mujer independiente, ¿vienes de México?
Sí.
De México. ¿No tuviste miedo de empezar tu negocio?
No.
¿No tuviste ningún miedo?
Pues sí, todo el miedo natural que es a lo extraño, pero lo más que la experiencia para mí, lo que me empujó más a estar en este país y abrir mi negocio es que soy latina y que quitar un poquito de esa imagen de la demás gente que tiene de nosotros los latinos aquí en Estados Unidos y en los demás países que no es el de nosotros. Y las ganas me dio un poquito de miedo, pero eso fue lo que me empujó más para iniciar mi negocio.
La Cámara tiene un nuevo edificio en Harrisburg.
Sí.
¿Qué es la dirección?
La dirección la pueden encontrar aquí si llaman para darles la dirección. Ahorita no me la sé.
Mejor el número de teléfono.
El número de teléfono, sí.
Es el 713-774-5002.
Exacto.
Ya se me estaba olvidando. Sí, no, pero,
es que nos acabamos de mover.
¿verdad? El nuevo edificio está en la Harrisburg, al fin en el edificio de Compass Bank.
Sí.
Ahí mismo, en el mismo segundo piso. Pero lo importante de la organización es de que la mayoría son inmigrantes, y todas las juntas están hechas en español, ¿verdad?
En español. Tratamos de estar siempre hablando en español, comunicándonos en nuestro idioma, porque es lo que necesitamos más. Hay otros grupos que no hablan el idioma de nosotros, entonces nos sentimos, en lo personal me siento un poquito más en confianza cuando me hablan mi idioma y puedo estar preguntando más y puedo estar hablando más y entonces entre más pregunto, más crece mi negocio. Entonces todo lo hacemos en español.
Creo que es un buen punto porque hay mucha gente, muchos inmigrantes que vienen aquí al país y no saben exactamente qué es lo que se requiere para empezar su propio negocio y nuestra gente viene con tantas habilidades, con tantas ganas de trabajar y siempre piensan que tienen que trabajar por alguien más y realmente este país es el de la oportunidad y que necesitamos que estar por nuestra propia cuenta para apoyarnos y crecer como como hispanos aquí.
Como
¿no
latinos, exactamente. Bueno, también es importante hablar inglés, por eso puse un negocio para enseñar inglés.
Okay.
Pero sí en la Cámara de Empresarios tratamos de hablar siempre en español.
¿Quién es el presidente de la Cámara de Empresarios?
El señor Hipólito Acosta.
¿Cuánto tiempo tiene ahí?
Ahorita vamos con el señor Hipólito Acosta para el segundo año. Estuvo un año de vicepresidente y ahora va corriendo para su segundo año.
Poli es muy buena gente.
Sí.
Tiene una buena historia también.
Sí, aprendemos mucho de él, muchísimo. Es un gran presidente.
¿Tienen
gran
algún
líder.
evento que se va a dar a cabo pronto que las personas pueden ir a participar?
Sí, tenemos el desayuno el día miércoles a las 8:30 en nuestras oficinas, donde nosotros vamos a hablar con la gente, contestarle preguntas y invitarlos a que se hagan socios de la Cámara, miembros de la Cámara.
¿Hay un costo para asistir?
No, para el desayuno no, para la membresía sí.
Si el del miércoles va a ser directamente, se llama, en inglés se dice Procurement Breakfast, y está escrita en inglés porque es Procurement Breakfast, pero es para hacer negocio. Se invita a que todos los dueños de negocios vengan directamente a pedir lo que anda buscando comprar, no lo que anda buscando vender. Es un modelo muy diferente a lo tradicional de networking. Si no vienes a buscar algo, si no andas buscando un arquitecto, un plomero, o un servicio de mercadotecnia o un apoyo, si no vienes buscando no te vas a poder presentar, honestamente.
Claro.
Es al revés, es que aquí va a ser la oportunidad de que vengas a comprar y de que los demás te puedan apoyar a crecer tu negocio, a apoyarte en lo que está faltando. Y también soy miembro de la Cámara y es un orgullo participar en la organización.
Sí, estamos creciendo mucho.
¿Cuántos miembros tienen?
Ahorita ya vamos cerca de los 800.
Está grande entonces.
Sí, estamos en los últimos 2 años. Con el señor Hipólito Acosta estamos trabajando bastante. Ahorita nos está ayudando mucho la compañía que tenemos de Adriana, que es la directora ejecutiva en español, y estamos trabajando bastante con la comunidad hispana.
¿Y cuál es el miembro ideal? Si uno está viendo ahorita la televisión o lo está viendo por el internet y dice, pues estoy en Houston, cerca del área, o tengo la idea de llegar un día a Houston, ¿quiénes son los que se deben juntar o arrimar a la Cámara?
Los empresarios que tengan su negocio aquí en Houston pueden acercarse con nosotros. Todo empresario que tenga su negocio es bienvenido a la Cámara de Empresarios Latinos de Houston.
El que quiera crecer su negocio.
El que quiera crecer su negocio. A veces pensamos de que ya tenemos todo el éxito en nuestros negocios y no queremos escuchar a otra gente, o no queremos buscar ayuda, o no queremos buscar una asociación porque nos da miedo los grandes grupos. Pero en realidad como empresario nunca terminamos de aprender. Yo siempre digo que el negocio es como el matrimonio. Nunca terminas de conocer tu negocio y nunca dejes de preguntar, nunca dejes de acercarte a la gente que ya tiene muchos años de experiencia como en Estados Unidos.
Ya llevamos 6 años casados, tú y yo, aquí en el programa.
¿Y eso? ¿De dónde salió eso?
Fueron a Massachusetts.
Utah.
Utah.
Because I'm married to my wife already.
I'm not jealous, no soy celoso. No, ya llevamos 6 años dando la oportunidad a la comunidad para poder hacer este programa y apoyarlo, porque todo lo que hacemos aquí es para la comunidad y estamos bien orgullosos de la organización, que como cualquier otra organización tiene sus problemitas, ¿verdad? Pues no,
Claro.
no hay ninguna organización perfecta, pero se ha levantado otra vez y está arrimando a la gente, está apoyando a los empresarios, a los comerciantes que quiere hacer negocio. Y hay un modelo nuevo que se está hablando, la idea es de que entre nosotros mismos nos pasemos el dinero entre nuestra comunidad primero.
Sí.
Entonces, si se puede hacer negocio entre nosotros mismos, ¿por qué no? Entre nosotros mismos podemos crecer nuestro negocio.
Exacto.
¿Verdad? Si yo sé que yo tengo que comprar plumas, lápices, ropa, camisetas, voy a buscar un miembro de los empresarios y hacer negocio con él primero. Y de ahí apoyarnos y crecer el negocio.
Esa es la idea, ese es el objetivo. Por eso es que estamos creciendo un poquito más, porque nos estamos apoyando más. Antes buscábamos por otra parte, pero el servicio que está dando ahorita la Cámara es muy flexible. Puedes encontrar lo que necesites.
Me da mucho gusto que ustedes están en el oeste de Houston. Hace mucho tiempo que tenían una oficina en el 59 pero está muy lejos
Muy
de la comunidad.
Sí,
Entonces está bien que están en el Magnolia.
sí.
Hay bastantes negocios ahí que pueden ser miembros de la Cámara.
Sí, estamos haciendo más actividades con los hispanos en el parque. Ahorita estamos organizando un evento en un parque, entonces pues a traer más a la gente hispana.
Y qué bueno que tienen eventos gratis, ¿verdad? Para ayudar a incentivar a la gente para que asista y que empiece a involucrarse, ¿no?
Sí, educar un poquito más a la gente que no tiene su negocio y motivarla para que inicie. Todos tenemos la oportunidad en este país de tener nuestro propio negocio y ser empresarios.
Claro.
Okay. Para más información pueden hablar al número de 713-713-774-5002. In English, if producers can write this on the screen, the phone number is 713-774-5002. It's the Cámara de Empresarios Latinos de Houston. And we want to make sure that you guys take the opportunity to join us. Queremos que nos acompañen a los empresarios y apoyen a crecer la organización.
Claro que
¿Algo
sí.
más?
Estamos invitándolos y para servirle una vez más en la Cámara de Empresarios Latinos de Houston, estamos para cualquier duda que tengan, que nos llamen.
Y como ustedes tienen recursos gratis, yo también tengo recursos gratis en mi sitio web. Yo soy Robert Arteaga, soy un psicoterapeuta y ahí pueden ir a escuchar entrevistas, mi programa de radio que se llama El Show de Psicología, que habrá todo sobre la psicología y cómo se puede aplicar a nuestras vidas en 3sesiones.com.
Y se llama Dr. Feel Good.
Yeah.
Esa es la versión en inglés. Tengo que traducirlo.
NCI, is anything coming up from NCI?
Ahorita mismo nada más estamos, are we still talking in English?
Como los dos idiomas, como quieras.
Okay. Well, we're just, our tax season is starting up, so if you need to get your taxes done, please visit neighborhoodcenters.org so that you can find out a location near you to go and get your taxes done for free if you make under $50,000 a year.
Okay.
Gracias por venir.
Gracias por invitarme.
Me da mucho gusto que estás aquí.
Un
Es muy
placer.
importante que la comunidad sabe lo que hacen, porque
Claro.
hay bastante gente que no sabe qué es la Cámara de Empresarios.
Muchas gracias por la invitación.
Aquí está en su casa y yo quiero invitar a otro empresario en el futuro para que también dé su testimonio sobre la oportunidad que tienen en la Cámara y también cómo han levantado su negocio. Porque pueden estar ahorita en su casa pensando, ¿qué voy a hacer? Y aquí está la oportunidad de aprender y apoyarse entre nosotros mismos. Entonces, en español está viendo el programa de Latino Talk TV. Now in English, thank you so much for watching Latino Talk TV. I hope you had a great time watching the show tonight. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.